As Elizabeth Taylor said to her eighth husband, I won't keep you long. Now, I got to get grounded. I only got 5 minutes here, but I got to know, do we have any Dallas Cowboy fans in the house? 1, 2, 3. For you guys, I'll talk slower, right? I don't know if you saw it, but Jerry Jones just announced that he's going to have a new honor system on that team. It's going to be called Yes, Your Honor, No, Your Honor. A couple weeks ago, we were talking about grandparents. And a couple weeks ago, as a grandfather of 10, I was taking my grandson, Bo, up to the Villanova game with my son. I do the broadcast for Villanova football, and I thought it would be a treat for them to sit in the booth with me and watch the game. And as we were going up Paoli Pike on this beautiful October afternoon, my son gets pulled over by one of the township's finest, and he is really upset because he exactly, Matt, you can understand, is 4 miles over the speed limit. And he is so upset that I said, yo, Brett, take it easy. I said, you know, don't let this ruin our day. The guy's got to do his job. We're going to have a great day. Don't let this one incident ruin our day. And from the back seat from the 5-year-old came this. Yeah, Dad, this happens to Mom all the time. Well, I start laughing, and Brett says, Dad, you're not helping me. And I said, I can't help it. And then Brett added, hey, Dad, also, if you're really nice to the officers, sometimes they let Mom go. You talked about your grandmom, Charlotte. I'm going to talk about my grandfather. He was once senator of the state here, Senator John E. Reilly. The bridge out here is named after him, going across to Christiana. And one time he told me, after I saw him in an argument with a politician down in Dover, he said, listen, arguing with people who won't change their minds is like wrestling a pig. You'll get dirty and the pig will like it. So I learned that piece of wisdom that I use today. And you know, as I look at this crowd out here, there's 200 of you. I'll bet there's 5 or 6 of you that have problems so overwhelming that you can hardly hear me right now. And I say, hang in there, because things won't last long. And for some of you, things are going really well. Business is well. You're off to a good start in the new year. And I say, enjoy it. It won't last long. You see, life is a system of valleys and peaks. And you got to understand how that works. How you respond to adversity in life will write your life story, believe it or not. And I will use this as an example. If you can keep calm during those periods where you go down, and you can keep reserved on those periods you go up, you know that old poem, if you can treat triumph and disaster the same and have an even keel, you will really be a leader to your people. And I give you as an example, just a couple weeks ago, I'm watching Nick Foles on TV, and I'm watching Kirk Cousins to make sure that Minnesota gets beat so we get in. And I noticed that Foles throws an interception. He walks off the field, the camera's on him, and he's calm, and he's collective, and he walks over, and he picks up the iPad, and you can see him going through it. Yeah, I made a mistake. Move on. The man lives in the present moment. Not 3 minutes later, I see Kirk Cousins throw a pass. The receiver went the wrong way, and the next thing you know, they're showing him in an argument with 3 wide receivers on the sideline during the game. Not the way to behave. So, if you can keep your head when all about you are losing theirs, you will fare better. And think about this, because we are challenged every day, as one of the speakers said, time management. And you only have so many hours in a day. I'm only going to touch on 3 of my things, because the other ones have been mentioned. One of the things, though, that I think is overlooked is be humble and show gratitude. As a leader, if you can talk to your people and get down and spend time with them and get to understand their life. Matt made a good point about following that kid home. How would he know? How would we know how our employees are unless we spend some time with them? One of the great leaders that I'm good friends with, Dick Vermeil, has a saying, and it goes like this. People don't care about how much you know until people know about how much you care. And he will go on to say that if you're a dictator, if you manage through fear, you can get people up to 100% of plan or where they're supposed to be, but you'll never get them to cross the line to do the extra. You'll never get them to overachieve. People will not go to bat for people that they don't know that they have some care for them. So keep that in mind as you go forward. And I'll just give you an example of that. I was very fortunate last year in 2018 to have my two favorite teams win national titles. The Philadelphia Eagles won the Super Bowl, and the Villanova Wildcats won the NCAA tournament. There were some commonalities in that I put in the second edition of my book that I thought were interesting. They were both underdogs. They circled the wagons. They cared about each other, and they worked as a team. And because of that, something happened that never happened in the history of sports. The MVP of the Super Bowl was a second-string player, as was the MVP of the NCAA tournament. And the proof in the pudding there is, if you don't care who gets the credit, and you care about each other and you work as a team, anything can be accomplished. The third thing I'd like to talk about is perseverance and adversity. You know, perseverance is really the practice sessions for handling adversity and becoming resilient. Perseverance is the before period before you can have resilience. And I give you this as an example. Perseverance is setting a goal for yourself this year that you're going to lose 20 pounds. And if you get there, great. And if you don't, you lose 18, your world didn't fall apart. All right? Resilience is when somebody takes something away from you. There's a major loss in your life, and you have to rebound for it. But the only way that you have resilience is if you work at perseverance as if it's a practice, because that's when you know you can get back on that horse and ride up again. When I was in Sloan Kettering Hospital and woke up and found out that I was missing my left shoulder, my left arm, and 4 ribs, that's a prosthetic device. It's made of Kevlar. You know what Kevlar is? Bulletproof, right? If I'm ever in a fight in a Logan house, I'm leading with this shoulder. Can you imagine if I got stabbed and I got up and I said, hey, is that your best shot? But anyway, I was starting to think about all the things that I would have problems with. And it was just starting to occur to me. I had a stick-shift Subaru sitting in the driveway. I'm thinking about buttons and zippers and keyboards. Oh, my. And all of a sudden, this guy appears at my door, and he's got one arm, and he's 65 years old. His name is Frank, and he's a counselor. And he's a volunteer, and he comes in, and he tells me about all the things that I'm not going to be able to do. And he brings this little knife in that had a very thick blade, and he showed me how to use it to cut my meat. And then he brought in this temporary prosthetic device that the Women's Auxiliary had made for me. And I said, why will I have to wear that leaving the hospital? He said, well, you want to make sure that when you leave the hospital, you leave with some sense of dignity and don't have your sleeve down at your ankle. You know, 5 years before this operation, I was tackling O.J. Simpson, Joe Namath, and John Riggins, and now a guy is talking to me about my dignity in the streets of New York. Now you can see how low I was going, and as he talked to me, I got lower and lower. And he told me, what do you do for a living? And I said, well, I work for the Xerox Corporation. What do you do there? I said, I'm an executive. What do you have to wear to work? I said, oh, a shirt and tie and shoes. I said, like those dress shoes you have on, those wingtips. Oh, he said, like these? And he put his big foot up on my bed. Yep. I said, I got a pair like that right in my closet. He said, you do? Not like this, you don't. And with that, he took my hand and he said, I want you to pull on this little tab here. I said, what tab? And he put my hand on it and I pulled up, and it was a Velcro tab. He said, if you're going to have to wear pre-tied shoes, tie shoes, you're going to have to get these pre-tied. And I said, why will I have to get pre-tied shoes? He said, you'll never be able to tie your shoes again. It can't be done one-handed. I've been trying for over 30 years. And then he pulled on my tie, and at that point, I was really glad. He said, pull on my tie, and I was really glad he didn't ask me to pull on his finger, but I pulled on his tie, and it was one of those clip-on ties that I had worn as a grade school kid going to St. Mary Magdalene. I was the oldest of 6 kids. My mother didn't have time to tie my tie. Oldest of 6 kids. I never slept alone till I was married either, but. And I asked him, why will I have to have clip-on ties? He said, you'll never be able to tie your tie again. Real quickly, a guy by the name of Rocky Blyer, whose story I won't go into, Google it for you young people, but he was a guy that I admired and had overcome adversity when doctors told him he would never play on the playing field again due to an injury in Vietnam, and he now has 4 Super Bowl rings. And he got on the phone to me and he challenged me not to change any of my goals until I found out I couldn't do it myself. And he made me promise him that I wouldn't quit on anything unless I tried it a dozen times. And I tell you that because there are people in this life that will challenge you and tell you you can't do things. And that's where the resilience infrastructure comes in. You've got to have resilience. You've got to believe in yourself. A national broadcaster told me on the way into the Eagles game when I was doing broadcasting for the Eagles, he said, "I listened to your radio show on the way in. You really do a good job. It's a shame you'll never get on TV." I said, "Why is that?" "They'll never put an amputee on TV. It'd be too much of a distraction." Bingo, you just challenged me. 2 years later, with the help of Artie Kempner, who I know some of you know, I did 4 preseason shows with the Philadelphia Eagles and proved them wrong. And so I tell you that because the human spirit is stronger than anything that can happen to it. Believe that. The human spirit is stronger than anything that can happen to it. Set your goals. Make sure that you implement them. And my New Year's resolution this year is do it now. Don't put anything off to tomorrow, which you can do today. And I'll tell you this is a great organization here. I am the proudest Delawarean you will see. And when I go out of state, I talk about this state because we are so close. We are family. And I will tell you something. There may be no such thing as magic, but there are miracles. And thanks to the people in this room, they happen right here in Wilmington, Delaware, and the rest of Delaware all the time. Thank you very much.